Hi, everybody. And how's everybody enjoying Las Vegas? Yeah, you having a good time? Yeah. Well done, guys. You've kind of made it almost all the way to the end, so you should all give yourself a big round of applause, I think. Woo. So thank you, everybody, for making it to our session, which is System Center 2012, Monitoring and Operation Tips and Advice. Now, anybody private clouded right out by now? Any hands? Everybody had enough of hearing the word private cloud? Or is everybody still raring to hear more about private cloud? Yeah, good, excellent. So, my name's Gordon McKenna, and I'm actually a CEO at Microsoft Gold Partner and System Center Specialist Inframon. I'm joined on stage by my colleague Sean Roberts, and I actually have another one of our colleagues who's going to be stepping in to do some demos today. So let's get on and see what we're going to be looking at. So first of all, we're going to do a few introductions and dive into why we're here, put some context around what we're going to talk to you about today, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about the private cloud mock. Anybody taken the private cloud exams this week? Yeah, how did you guys get on? Good? No, some shakes, nods. So we're going to talk about the mock, and we're going to talk about the certifications, and it's not too late for you guys to take all this private cloud knowledge down to the certification room and have a go at taking these 2 new private cloud exams. So we're then going to look at a couple of key areas. So myself and Sean and our team were responsible for writing the 2 brand new private cloud courses which are available to training centers now. And what we're going to do, and the idea behind this, is we're going to take some of the key points from that course, and we're going to talk you through those elements, and we're going to give you some hints and tips that we found while we were developing it, and also some hints and tips from the field. So we're going to be looking around monitoring private cloud services. We're then going to be looking at automating incident remediation and change requests. So these are scenarios that encompass nearly all the parts of the System Center 2012 product. We're also going to be looking at problem management. So something available in Service Manager, but we're going to add a new twist to that. We're going to show you how you can actually automate problem management with Orchestrator to make it a little bit more effective in your organization. We're then going to look at automating self-service provisioning. So we're going to take a look at some of the processes that you can do between VMM, between Operations Manager, between Service Manager, and again, using the runbooks within Orchestrator. We're going to do a bit of a summary at the end, and then we're going to jump in and do some announcements. So again, just on the introductions, I think we've already done this. As I mentioned, I am an MVP, have been for 7 years, so very, very deep on System Center and very deep across the stack now. So I used to be an Operations Manager MVP. I'm now a Cloud and Data Center Management MVP, which means I can't just get away with learning one product now. I've got to learn across the suite. I've got my colleague here, Sean Roberts. I'll let him introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sean Roberts. I'm also a director at Inframon. My background is BI. Just to show of hands, who was in our session yesterday? Oh, that's good. Yes. Okay. Cool. So that's sort of my background. But actually, for the last 3 months or so, I've been living and breathing building the mock courses. So Gordon and I worked together from the design phase all the way through to the implementation. And so today we've picked out 4 of our key favourite scenarios, and we're just going to go through them. So there's lots and lots of demos in this session.
Thank you, Sean. Also got Steve Veach here at the background, sitting down and hiding from you because he's a bit shy. But he's going to be stepping up to do a couple of demos for us today as well. So let's move on. So let's take a quick look at the mock and certification. I know some of you have heard about this or even done it this week. I just wanted to cover it for you that maybe haven't. The Microsoft SC 2012 Private Cloud exams are here at MMS, and they are free. So any of you guys that haven't gone and taken them, there's still a chance. You've still got tomorrow. You can go down today, sign up, and take the exam. And you know, what have you got to lose? It's absolutely free to take it. And there's 2 exams that are available from private cloud. They are in beta format at the moment. And that's one around operating a private cloud with System Center, or monitoring and operating, and another one around configuring and deploying. We're going to be focusing on some of the elements around the monitoring and operating side today. So hopefully, off the back of this session, you might be able to go down and take that one tomorrow with some of the nuggets you might have learned off us. So the end goal of getting these 2 exams is that you all become private cloud certified and become private cloud solution experts. So anybody want to become a private cloud solution expert? Yeah, quite a few of you. Good. So let's take a look at see if some of you are already there. So the first thing that you need is an MCSA. How many MCITPs in the room? Okay, so you're no longer MCITPs, or you won't be very soon. Anybody had their MCSA letter through yet? A few of you. Excellent. So this is one of the big changes. We're moving from MCITP towards MCSA, and I'll just cover that in a sec. So MCSA plus exam 247, as he takes the screen out, plus exam 246 equals an MCSE. MCSE, that sounds a little bit familiar. Yes, MCSE is back with a different meaning this time. They couldn't get away from that name. Everybody still loves the old MCSE, so they've brought it back. Now, until January the 31st, just a quick tidbit for you. Anybody that's taken 70659, which is actually the server virtualization exam, doesn't have to take 247. So they can just take the 246 and the 659, and then along with their MCSA, they then become a solutions expert. So quick show of hands, all you MCITPs in the room. Just put your hands in the air. Right, so I want you to put your hand down. If you keep your hands up, MCITPs. Now, I want you to keep your hand up if you have one of these qualifications, and only take it down if you don't, yeah? So Windows Server 2008 Active Directory and Configuring. Keep your hands up if you've got it. Windows Server 2008 Network Infrastructure Configuring. Okay. Windows Server 2008 Server Administrator. Okay, so you guys, with your hands still up, are MCSAs already. So of you guys that put your hands down, how many are Server Enterprise Administrators? Okay, so you're also MCSAs, because they're going to actually, sigh of relief there. So you are well on your way to becoming a solution expert in private cloud. Now what we're going to focus on today, and what I want to talk about, is actually, we're focusing on the 2 courses, or we're going to give you information from the 2 courses that have been developed to actually get you through these exams. So I've had a lot of feedback that the exams for some people are a little bit difficult. Well, there are 2 5-day training courses that are available to help you through those courses. One in configuration and deployment, designed for people who are designing, architecting, and deploying a private cloud with System Center 2012. The 10750 that we're going to focus on today is around monitoring and operating. So it's for you guys that are actually running the System Center on a day-to-day basis. Those courses are available now. So if you're interested in actually taking them, get in touch with your training provider, and you can go and take those courses from now onwards. So I'm going to, these are some of the things that the private cloud are targeting. I imagine most people in the room are covered by this: application management, service delivery and automation, application and service infrastructure management. You guys wouldn't be here if you weren't involved with those kind of things day to day. So that's basically the targeting. And the course that we're going to look at today is targeting around building, deploying, managing and operating and monitoring the private cloud. I wanted to just, for those that are interested in taking the course, I'm just going to flash over these slides. These are actually the modules that you will go and take in the course if you're interested in learning it. So you'll do all the basics, building business unit cloud, private cloud services, but you'll also get quite heavily into Orchestrator and Service Manager and App Controller and some of the other fairly new products in there as well. So we're going to be covering just a couple of these modules today, and hopefully give you, again, some nuggets that you can take away and maybe try. Now, I've heard a lot of feedback this week from people that everybody's kind of seeing the same kind of demos about service templates and scaling up services. So we're actually not going to try and teach you anything you've already seen today. We're hopefully going to teach some stuff that you can actually take away and use today in the real world. So we tried to tie the demos down to some real world scenarios and stuff that you can actually go and deploy and might be useful for you. And our goal is, after this session, for you to go away and be able to just try out a few new things with Systems Center 2012. So the first module that we're going to look at is around monitoring private cloud services. How many operations manager guys in the room? Okay, good, quite a lot of you. So some of this will be new, some of this might not be. So we're going to do very, very, very brief, as we've got a lot of operations manager guys in the room, overview of Operations Manager 2012. And we're going to look at a couple of things around custom monitoring, and monitoring distributed applications. Now, the custom monitoring and the distributed applications are what we're going to focus on in the demo, and we're going to look at configuring an end-to-end model with some of the services you might have in your organization, and then we're going to look at how we can do things to configure them and publish them out to SharePoint so you can show them off to the business and make you look really good. So very, very high-level overview, and I'm only going to talk about the new features for System Center 2012, as we have a lot of operations manager guys in the room already. Support for heterogeneous environment. It's kind of not new. You know, operations manager's been doing Unix and Linux monitoring for a while. It's just been updated for 2012 for all the new versions of that. We're also, another heterogeneous environment that we might be monitoring with System Center 2012 is Java. We've kind of already been doing .NET monitoring with Avicode, so we take it that's a given. But Java is a new thing that we might be monitoring with System Center 2012 today. So there's full Java support for monitoring Java applications in System Center 2012. And there's a little open source Java bean that you can download, embed into your Java application, and you can do an element of performance and availability monitoring against that application. Maybe not quite to the deep diagnostics level today that .NET gives you, but certainly you'll be able to provide some valuable information to your business on the way those applications are running. End-to-end monitoring, which is what we're going to focus on in the demo today. Again, kind of not new, but we can kind of bring things together. There's been some improvements with the distributed application designer. And of course, we have network monitoring now added to Operations Manager. So we can, and proper network monitoring. Anybody do network monitoring before with Operations Manager 2007? So just a handful of people. Not the easiest thing in the world to do, and not extremely scalable with 2007. So that's had a complete rewrite. Microsoft bought some IP off EMC Smarts quite a few years ago, and kind of we've been waiting until this day for them to kind of use that and embed that in the product. So now we have a smart network discovery mechanism. We have the ability to have lots of different devices monitored with key information like we get from management packs. And obviously we can add that into our end-to-end network, our end-to-end monitoring scenario. And you know, you think about it, you guys manage services in your day-to-day lives. You manage things like Exchange and SharePoint and line of business applications, and they all rely on network devices. So how many people put their hands up, get on with their network team in their organization? So not many at all. How many people are their network team in their organization? Okay, a couple of you. You know, it's that kind of thing. They sit over in one corner of the room and monitor the network devices, and we sit over here and we monitor the applications. And, you know, when those problems occur, it's never the network devices, is it? It's always your servers and always your applications that are running. So now, you know, Operations Manager isn't going to go out and replace a lot of your network monitoring products out there. I mean, it might well do. You know, it's deep in some places to do that. But it's not designed to that. I think of network monitoring in Operations Manager 2012 as being network monitoring for server guys. Yeah, it's that ability to be able to see what those network devices are going. And the next time Exchange is running slow or users can't log on, you can just phone up that networking guy and say, it's actually that Cisco switch on the top floor. You need to go and deal with it. You know, and you can send him information or give him an email on that. So it bridges that problem as well. And the .NET application support is quite good as well. So how many people in the room who are operations guys don't get on with their developers? Yeah. So another common thing, you know, I've been into some organizations and I've got a developer and an ops guy sat down together talking, and it's the first time they've ever sat down together in their working lives, and they actually live a couple of desks away from each other. But they typically don't mix. And again, you have that problem. If the application's running slow, it's never the code, is it? It's always your servers and the application. So, you know, the .NET stuff I really like because it brings, you know, it makes you guys empowered. It gives you the ability to, all of this stuff, to know exactly where the problem is and to go and identify that and to stop those arguments happening in the organizations. So, service level tracking, Sean's going to cover in a bit. You know, management pack templates are a key way. You guys that are getting into Operations Manager for the first time, management pack templates are a very good starting point. I definitely recommend looking at the authoring tools, and there are some excellent new authoring tools available for 2012. Anybody seen the new Visio Snap-in and the Visual Studio extensions? We've been working with that stuff for a while, and it's very, very good. But for you guys getting started, we have management pack templates that actually 5 or 6 clicks of a wizard, and you can actually create rules, monitors, views, discoveries. It's very quick and simple to get up and running. So we cover things like OLADB monitoring, so I can monitor databases. People often say to me, I want to monitor my website, I want to show availability. Well, I've got this web transaction recorder that I can use, and I can go and simulate a user logging onto a website. But they say, yeah, but half of my applications are thick clients. Now, our experience is most thick client applications are making some kind of database call behind the scenes. So OLADB monitoring allows me to do that database call and run a query against the database. Unix and Linux monitoring is added into templates, and we also do the basics like TCP process and Windows Server monitoring. So again, a little bit around network monitoring. We're not going to dive too much on it. We now support SNMP v3, yay, at last. So we didn't support that in the previous device, and that means that we can now discover all of your router switches, interface, and ports. Now, the best feature, and I'm not going to talk too much on this slide, that I love about the way that we do network monitoring in System Center 2012 is that it does a little thing called port stitching. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to discover a device and manage all of the interfaces that are on that device. That's what network guys do, you know, because they're interested in all of the interface on the device. I'm only really interested in the ones that my Exchange server is talking to. So System Center 2012 does something called port stitching. It finds out what the interfaces on a switch are talking to from a server point of view, and it maps your servers and your devices together. And I think that's key, because I need to be able to understand stuff in relation to the things that I'm monitoring in my environment. So another big element, we're big at Inframon on distributed application monitoring. I absolutely believe that this distributed application monitoring in Operations Manager is the most powerful function in the product, and nobody uses it. How many people use distributed application designs in the organization? You know, a very small number. And do you know what? I don't think you can do end-to-end monitoring unless you can monitor your applications heterogeneously. And we've been doing this for years with customers and have massive success, and it always makes me sad when I go in and they're not using that feature in the product. So Sean's going to kind of show you a bit around that, and we have some great new stuff in 2012 for that too. So I'm going to hand you over to my learned colleague, Mr. Roberts, and he's going to talk about distributed application modeling and a little bit more.
Thanks, Gordon. So I'm just going to fire into my machine. Hope it comes alive. There she is. So yesterday, for those of you that were in my session, and it's been in a few other sessions with Belson, we now have a new distributed application modeling tool and management pack creation tool, which is the Visio add-in. So I'm just going to jump in and just quickly show you what that looks like. And one of the main reasons why this is a whole lot better designing these management packs using this tool is to do with the health roll-ups and the health relationships. So those of you who have gone and built distributed application models before probably would have got to the point where they've built an awesome distributed app and then gone from the design view to the actual runtime view, and it looks nothing like how you expected it to look. Who here has had that experience before? And the reason for that is because the relationships that we create when we're creating a distributed application model and we drag from one to the other is what's called a reference relationship. There's 3 different types of relationships available within Operations Manager. Reference relationship is just simply a dotted line. It has no impact upon health. It has no impact upon roll-ups or anything like that. We then have 2 other types of relationships. One is a hosting relationship, which means that the object is hosted by the parent object. So this might mean database is hosted by database instance. The database cannot exist without the database instance. In those relationship types, the health will roll up. The second type of roll-up relationship that we have is containment. So that means group contains servers. In that instance, if a server goes red, the group goes red. Of course, that's not strictly true, because when we create a group through the console, it doesn't have a monitor on it. But if you create the aggregate roll-up monitor, it will go red. When we're creating the distributed application diagrams, which I'll just get to in a second, let me pull this up. The distributed application component group objects actually have a roll-up monitor built into them. So I'll come over here to my distributed application in the authoring console, right-click and create new distributed application. And what we see down here on the left-hand side in our box here is our templates. Now, it is possible for you to go and define your own templates We'll put them into a sealed management pack, and then they will appear in the drop down here. The new one we have is the .NET 3-tier application one. We always had the line of business web app and the messaging and the blank one. So I'll come in here. Okay, so I'm just going to put this in my test.
Just one thing there. You guys that are hardcore ops manager guys, did you notice that little bit with the management pack that it no longer says default management pack? Yeah, how many people used to always throw their rules in there and then run into trouble later down the line? So, again, one of my new favourite features, the fact that it forces you to create a new management pack to put your stuff into.
Okay. So here we have the templates laid out, the tiered model for us. And this is really just a suggested template. We can go and chop and change things in here. Each of these objects here that I'm clicking on are called distributed application component objects. Anything within those has a roll-up policy. Now, one of the new things that we have available to us within Operations Manager 2012 is we can configure the health roll-up for each of the individual monitor types. So those of you that are aware, if I go over to my console and pull up any object and open up the Health Explorer, health always rolls up to one of four things. That is availability. So these are monitors that are determined to contribute to availability of the application. We have configuration, performance, and security. Now, in 2007, whenever we put anything in a group or into a distributed application model, it would actually only roll up the availability monitors. And as we nested those things and rolled them up, it was only availability that did it. Now we have the ability to control in the distributed application designer, once I save the distributed application down, how we configure up the roll-up for each of those individual nodes. So we can say, actually, availability, we want that to roll up to the top level. If any availability object goes red, any object goes red because of an availability monitor, I want that to affect the top level application. Performance, on the other hand, and configuration and security, not so concerned. So don't roll those up. Now, with the distributed application components, well, that's just saving down. Distributed application components have, underneath the covers, a thing called a relationship type. And the relationship type determines what type of thing can go into it. So with the templates, these are already configured up with types that we can drop in there, which is ASP.NET application, database, distributed application component, etc., etc. If we want to change them, we can just click on the object, right-click, go to the properties, and then you'll see the target types. And you can change the target type, if I just come over here, to whatever we want. And so this is, here we see, this is the object model within SCOM that you may or may not be familiar with. And we see actually it's already filtered down for web application availability monitoring test. If we wanted to put in something else in this box, we could just click physical entity, for instance, and it would allow us to put that in there. Coming over the right-hand side, the designer has automatically picked up the types of things that are contained in this model. So it's picked up the ASP.NET application, right-click. It shows that I can put this in either the presentation tier or the business tier. The presentation tier is used for anything that a user hits, so that's your front-end websites. Your business tier is used for middle-tier services. So this is web services, or you might have a Windows service that runs there, something that sits between the database layer and the presentation layer. So in this instance, we'll just put this over into our presentation layer. Coming down to perspectives. So perspective is another abstract type within Operations Manager. And the things that inherit from perspective are the web URL click-throughs, the availability monitors, the OLEDB tests. Anything that tests something from somewhere else is inherited from the application, from the perspective object. So again, I can just drop this in here, and we see that the distributed application model component is filtered down for that. So we'll just drop that one in there. Actually, I dropped the wrong one. Apologies. I'll drop this one in.
And obviously, I could add to this and put network devices and other elements, hardware items, things like that.
Exactly. Now, just coming back to our business tier, we have our data tier. So a data tier is typically a database. So we have our dinner now database that we're going to drop into there. That comes in there, and then our business tier, we can put in a service. That's not a Windows service.
Sure, what's the advantage of putting a service into that tier then?
Well, typically, we see organizations use the business tier as a web service or a custom Windows service,
okay.
Which we can monitor that web service using APM and then start getting any understanding of the exceptions that we're seeing within that. Right, so I'm just going to save down that model. And while that model's saving, what we're going to go on to next is then create some service level tracking against this object. There we go, saved. So the service level tracking is used to, it's in the monitoring pane, is used for creating SLAs and measuring the performance of that application. So I'm just going to come over here and create one. So this is dinner now, SLA, objects to track, target my distributed application model. Next, add in my objective, monitor. So we go performance, availability. And now, using this, we can actually put in performance. Now, you were always able to, when configuring these up, change this to the performance monitor. But because of the way that it used to roll up and only roll up the availability figures, your performance was actually always nearly 100%. If you target it at the immediate group, it would then have the roll up of those. So now we have this here, and we can do performance. Typically, customers seem to go for 95% on that, and they include warning in there as well, saying that if it's in a warning or a critical state, then it's performing poorly. Go OK, next, finish. And that's now going to go and create that service level tracking.
And that, important thing here, that's availability of the application. Gone are the days when we used to do service uptime as availability. The business demands now that we do availability. The service and all of the components are in there. So that's really the thing that you want to set your service level objective against rather than individual components. Right.
So what we can do now is just come in here and create ourselves a dashboard view. Now, there's many different types of dashboard views, but because we're focusing on service levels at the moment, I'm going to use the service level widget. Now, widgets are a new component within Operations Manager, and they are used for publishing the data up into SharePoint. So I'll do this service level dashboard. What SLAs do I want to target? So we put in the dinner now one from our test MP. Okay, next. We have the ability to change over what period there, and create. Right, so I'm just going to browse to my SharePoint site. Now, my SharePoint site already has the Operations Manager widgets installed into it. You just use a PowerShell script to do that. This is created, so we should see this pop up in the console. As we see, availability and performance is 100%. Now, you may ask me, and often customers ask me, say, I just created this, so how can it possibly be 100% for the previous 24 hours? The reason is the way the data is stored within Operations Manager for state-based data is no data is considered good data. So when a bad event happens, Operations Manager stamps into the database saying we've gone into a red state, and then for every hour in the red state, it stamps that, or red or yellow. When we go green, it goes 2 more hours of saying green, green, and then it stops stamping. And the main reason around that, of course, is there's thousands or possibly hundreds of thousands of monitors within Operations Manager, and this is a way of Operations Manager keeping the data under control and a lot smaller than what it would be. So I've just come over to my web page. Site actions, going to create a new page. Just want a new dash. Create. While that's doing that, I'm just going to browse to my local web console. Okay. Going to add a web part. We see System Center Operations Manager in here, Operations Manager Dashboard Viewer, add. And what we have to do now is just grab the URL from the Operations Manager web console, and then we take that URL and put it into the web part, and then that will now display the web part in the SharePoint site. So I come over here, edit my web part. We see the dashboard link. And it's just going to come up now. So then I come into my test MP. Copy and paste that over into the link, and then click apply. Oh, not a valid dashboard link. What did I do wrong? Maybe I was too quick.
A little bit too quick there, I think.
Oh, I grabbed one that I created earlier, which is a bit more interesting because we've got some real data in it. So I'll drop that one in. Okay. And then click OK.
And I'm presuming I could put multiple dashboards into that view as well?
Yep, because it's just a web part page, web parts, and it's using SharePoint, we can drop as many as we want and configure them up how we want. Okay, and that will display in a moment.
Perfect, exactly
And
the
there we
same
go.
as it is in the web console.
Exactly the same as in the web console. So that's very quickly, at a high level, one of the labs that we go through, one of the modules, we obviously go into a little bit more detail around creating all the synthetic transactions. And in that module, we create synthetic transactions, create rules, go into some of the APM monitoring, create the distributed application model, and then publish up the dashboard up to the SharePoint site. So I'll hand you back over to Gordon now.
Thank you, Sean. So a little demonstration there of how we can very, very quickly, do a little bit of monitoring. I mean, that looked pretty easy, didn't it? Much easier than maybe implementing the old SLA dashboard. Guys, definitely get into distributed application modeling with System Center 2012. Some hints and tips now around this that basically from the course. So always build out service models in the DAD, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Build those distributed application models, drop your objects in, model them, and get them displayed. You can very easily, I learned a lesson early on in my career that good eye candy wins you money for projects. Yeah, because you get some good eye candy in front of your bosses, you get it on plasma screens, all of a sudden they think you're the best thing since sliced bread. So, work on getting those DAD models, work on getting those SLA reports out as well. So use free tier service models that match your business functions. So there's that one out of the box, which is good. Might not exactly match your line of business application. A lot of you guys will have been looking at the whole service modeling thing in VMM today. Build those models. That's if there isn't one already, because obviously if you have a virtual machine manager connection and you're creating services in VMM, those automatically appear within Operations Manager anyway. But definitely work on getting those models and match them. So, client network services, and then break your services out to back, middle, front end, and really get them to match your business function, because you can do a lot of things with that. Once you've created distributed application models for individual business groups or teams, you can actually do lots of things with that. You can scope users based on all the objects that are in that DAD model. You can do notifications based on all those users that are in that DAD model. So it's a very great way of kind of doing an element of multi-tenancy within Operations Manager, because actually that distributed application model creates a class that contains a number of objects. And it's one of the only places within Operations Manager where you can actually create a class without having to go into things like the authoring consoles. Use MP templates for true proactive monitoring. So I had a customer the other week that had a BizTalk application, and they were complaining because sometimes it would not be active. And then all of a sudden they'd have a user coming in and they'd try and access the SQL database from the web service, and the SQL database wouldn't be available. So, what we did was set up some MP templates that quiz the database every 5 minutes to make sure it's up. So use MP templates to provide proactive monitoring throughout your application, and just make sure the application's up, both from a front-end point of view and a back-end point of view. Use APM to stop that developer versus IT pro arguments. We kind of covered that at the beginning. And the Java stuff can go an element with that as well, and create a dedicated SharePoint portal for your dashboards and reports, and get that out in front of the business, get it on your plasma screens. The reports you can also save down to SharePoint via a report web viewer part. So you can have a unified portal that has all of your dashboards and your reports in, and you put that out. I meet a lot of service providers who spend a week, 2 weeks, a month, or bi-monthly printing out reports for customers. And the problem with that is that actually, a lot of the time, customers don't ever read the reports, or you get some customers that will go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So actually giving out your users or your customers a set of reports that they can choose the data, they can choose a lifetime, will just save you a lot of time and money, and you can just direct people. And those who saw Sean's analytical session tomorrow, you can also push OLAP type data up to that SharePoint console and start doing capacity planning type reports as well. It's fairly simple to get up and running with that. So we're going to look at a bit of automation now. So we're going to look at Service Manager and Orchestrator, and we're going to look at automating instant creation, remediation, and change requests. So, everybody's familiar by now with Service Manager and some of the elements, and Orchestrator. We're going to look at how we can bring those together. So we're going to do a very brief overview of Orchestrator, and then we're going to look at integrating Orchestrator with Operations Manager and Service Manager. So you might have heard people saying to you, you can use Orchestrator to do remediation of events from Operations Manager. How do you do that? What are the elements that you need to be able to do that? And also Service Manager. We talk about incidents coming in or change requests or templates. How do I do that automatic remediation on the back of that? So we're going to look at those elements as well. Fairly high-level run-over of Orchestrator. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this already. Fairly similar in structure, not name, to the older Parlous product. We have a runbook designer now, and that has a deployment manager, which is the same name as the old one in Parlous. The runbook designer also typically hosts the test console, so we can not only create our runbooks within the runbook designer, but we can also test them. Do make sure that when you're testing out your runbooks, you remove those production databases off them, or those production references, because the tester does actually test in the real world. And I've seen a few people get into some sticky situations where they've forgot to take out that production database name or that server. We then have a management server. This is the core in the Orchestrator infrastructure. This actually manages all the jobs and the pushing of the integration pucks out. We then have runbook servers. Typically, runbook servers sit in the locations where you're running the runbooks from, or the workflows from Service Manager and Orchestrator. So they will be local to where you have. We then have our database. And anybody out there try to deploy the older Parlous operations console? Anybody? Not a very nice experience, was it? There you go. Somebody put it quite nicely. You're pleased to know that all that pain's gone away now. We have a lovely Silverlight console that installs in a few clicks. So that's kind of one of my favourite new bits with Orchestrator. So a quick overview as well around integration packs. Integration packs are the core with Orchestrator. Without an integration pack, it's like Operations Manager without management packs. Integration packs are the things that give you all of those API slots from the applications. So basically what an integration pack does is it gives you a mean of connecting into the API on a particular platform. It will then take particular API slots that you can make into that API and turn them into activities that you can then drag onto a Workbench designer and turn into kind of runbooks. So just come over here. So integration with Operations Manager. So Orchestrator integrates with everything, basically, particularly from a System Center point of view. But typically with Operations Manager, you would install the R2 integration pack or even the 2012 integration pack. And, it does support backward compatibility. So for you guys that have maybe got Operations Manager 2007 and you haven't deployed 2012 yet, but kind of want to get using some of the Orchestrator functionality, you can actually get running with Orchestrator today, and you can integrate it with your old versions. And that's the same for Config Manager as well. So the same with Service Manager. It supports the older versions, hence me putting that up there. So you can support both 2010. And some of the interesting objects you get from Service Manager are around creating instance directly, or templates, or updating objects within Service Manager. So we're going to do a little demo here. And is that you again, Sean? I think it is. And we're going to do a demo around configuring an incident template within there.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. Actually, we're going to do a little bit more than that today. So this demo I'm about to show you is one of my favorite ones. This is, again, another lab from the course. And it was designed actually with a specific customer of ours in mind. One of our customers runs a very big web farm, and sort of 200-300 web servers in the web farm. And periodically, W3WP process crashes or something crashes and the IIS website stops. Now, what happens in that scenario is operations manager goes a bit berserk, starts firing off loads of alerts, and then a tier 1 guy picks up the phone, or sees it, picks up the phone, gets a guy out of bed, and the first thing the guy says is, actually, can you just go and try and restart the website? And so the guy goes off and starts the website, and if it starts, he closes the call, the guy goes back to bed, we're all happy. The second scenario that happens is he calls up, tries to restart the website won't restart, and so he says, reboot the machine, and call me back if it doesn't come back up after that. So off we go, reboot it, comes back up. And this customer came to us, actually, and said, you know what, that's kind of crazy. We're spending a lot of money getting people out of bed with overtime calls, spending a lot of effort going and doing this. Surely we can automate this process and automate this. So what we designed for the course, taking a real-world example, was doing exactly that with Service Manager and Orchestrator. So how this all fits together is Operations Manager detects the event of the IIS stopping. We have a workflow within Orchestrator that is waiting for that event. The first step it tries to do is go in and restart the website. If it fails, it creates an incident ticket, moves forward, creates a change request ticket, waits for someone to approve that change request, goes back, puts the machine in maintenance mode, reboots it. So I'll take you through how that fits together. So first thing I'm going to do is jump over to my Operations Manager box, which I already have open, which isn't on my screen. Okay, we're just going to go into the monitoring view, active alerts. While that's doing that, we're going to go to my Orchestrator box. Now, within Orchestrator, I lost half my screen. Right. So I'm just going to open up the Orchestrator console. So I'm going to do this in the Runbook Designer today, actually. We can run this through the Orchestrator console, which is a Silverlight console. But the reason I'm opening up the Runbook Designer is I'm actually going to step through it in debug mode. And this allows us to a lot more quickly see how each of the steps and step through it. If we do it through the console in run mode, then it all happens so quickly you won't see anything happen. So here is my workflow. And the first thing that starts off the workflow is it is waiting for the IIS website stop. So it's sitting here waiting for alerts. With the next step, then, is it tries to go, waits for the alert, and then it tries to restart the IIS website. And so we've got some PowerShell script that does this here. We enable remote PowerShell, goes through, and then just returns a status back. And we see this with the run.NET script objects, is we have the ability in here to publish variables from PowerShell back out to the workflow so we can consume them. The next step it does is if it fails, and we see the logic on this step here, if it returns or doesn't equal the website started, then it will go on to creating an incident. So in here, this is the create incident step within Service Manager, that goes to Service Manager and creates it. So here we have a connection to Service Manager. It gives us the option of selecting a class. So here we've created a change request class, and we have the template. We could create any sort of class type, which would be incident change, release records, service requests. So we create the incident, create the change template through that. We get the computer object out of Service Manager. So we have the actual computer object, and then we associate that object to the ticket itself, to the change record. So when we go into the change record, it will say, change request raised to reboot server, and then we see the actual server in the change request against it. The next step that we have is the authorization step. So the workflow then goes into a wait, and it waits until the authorization, someone goes in and doesn't approve. Once someone has approved that, it then goes into Operations Manager, does a start maintenance mode, puts in a reason, puts in 5 minutes, and then kicks off a restart of the server. So what does this look like? So first thing I'm going to do is jump over to App 1, log on to the machine. Right, just make sure that it's all, no events sitting in there right now. Great. So I'll just open up my IIS Manager. Right. Over on my orchestrator machine, I am now going to go and do the runbook tester. So runbook tester checks the runbook out, brings it up in this test console. And then what I can do is I can toggle a breakpoint. So this is, any of you who do any coding, it's just like that, create a breakpoint in your code. And then I'm going to click on run. Right, so now this is going to run. Now it is just waiting and polling Operations Manager every 5 seconds for this event. I come into here, to my Run app, my default website. Oh, wrong Run app 2 I want, apologies. Sorry, it's a little difficult to navigate. I've lost half of my screen up here. So I'm just going to come up into the IIS. IIS is started. Excellent. Default website. So I'm going to stop that website. So coming back over to Operations Manager, we will see in a few moments that Operations Manager will detect that, and it should then fire off our alert that we're interested in, which is your IIS website has stopped. Let's give it a little refresh. Shouldn't take too long. Oops.
I think while Sean's waiting there, while Sean's waiting for that to come in there, we've done, typically with customers, it isn't just a website, because you think when an application goes down. We've got one particular customer has a very important e-commerce site. And actually, when that goes down, it fails over to a data center. And they were basically going and calling a team of guys out of bed to find out why that site's failed over. And that could have been any type of the night or day. Now, actually, when we looked at it, there was about 15 things that they always did. So they kind of had a run book, if you like, for fixing that problem. And it was looking at the SQL database, querying tables on that, looking at indexes, restarting the SQL database, then looking at the .NET Web Services, restarting them, going to IIS, restarting the IIS site, looking in log files. And actually what we were able to do was automate that entire 15-check process that they did, and then actually Operations Manager would detect the failover, and we would run that set of processes first. Yeah, at the end of it, and we would test at each step. And at the end of it, if the site was still down, then we'd punch a ticket in and get the engineer out of bed. And actually, since we put that in, they haven't had one single call out when that site's gone down, because it's normally fixed the problem before the engineers come out. Now, for me, when we talk about private cloud, that's private cloud to me. You know, it's like getting really efficient about the way that you do data center operations by using automation.
Okay, so just coming back over, we see in the Operations Manager console, there's our website has stopped alert down the bottom there. Coming back into Orchestrator, we see that now we actually have a result. So it's been polling, it's picked up this, this ticket, picked up this alert. So the first step it's going to try and do is start the IIS website. So we click Next, it's running that PowerShell against that IIS website. And if it's successful, which hopefully it should be, because it should just be able to start it. Oh, it's not, okay. It was failed to restart that website, which is good. The next step it does is it will then go on and raise the ticket within Service Manager. So we click Next. I come over to my Service Manager box. Right, so this orchestrated workflow, still executing that step. Once it's done that, we'll be able to see in the orchestrator, in the service manager box that it's created the incident ticket. Okay, where are you? Still waiting, still trying to get in there. The poor little shuttles have had a heavy week just like the rest of us, I think. There we go. So it's gone through, it's created that ticket, so come back to Service Manager. I'll just do a little refresh on here. There we go. So we see the incident has been created up here, which is the orchestrator failed to restart the website. So I'll just pull that one up. And while it's pulling that up, I'll let it go on to the next step. So the next step is it's going to create the change request. So I do next. It's now going into orchestrator, into Service Manager to create the change request for the reboot. Okay, so here's our orchestrator failed to restart the website ticket that's gone and created in there. Okay, it's classified as high. Not a huge amount of information in there. We come over to our change requests. And just sort by the change request number. Here we go. CR has been raised. You see, I've practiced this plenty of times today. Standard change request, server restart required. And we see here, so it's raised this, automated website restart failed, need to reboot server. And we see the areas, we see the config items. Oh, if I come back here, actually, and just let it go through the next two steps, which is attaching the computer to the ticket, to the change request. So let's come back. There it is, and it's just going to attach that to that ticket.
So what that's doing is pumping extra information into that change request ticket.
That's right, putting in the server. We could actually bind it to a service as well if we wanted to. So it would pick that up and see which business service is affected. So it's done that. Now we're going to just go into a wait state while we're waiting for this to be authorized. So I'll come back over to Service Manager. I'll just close and reopen this ticket. Do you want to continue? Yes.
Another point to make on that, we talked about distributed application models in the last part. If you have a distributed application model that you've designed in Operations Manager, that gets ported up to Service Manager via the Service Manager connector for Operations Manager. So you could actually do some service level management by when this alert comes in, you could connect it back to that service model that you had originally, which gives you a kind of tied service level management story as well. So and what the service level management in Service Manager does that's different is it has certain business owners attached to the service model. Because there might be other people within your process line that actually need to be notified that this website's gone down too, and you can actually kick off other workflow activities based on that tie-up with that service model as well.
Okay, so here now we see in the change request the config items that are affected, and that's the server. I can come over to my activities pane, and we see in this activities that it's awaiting for approval. So I just come back into here, open up the activity, and then come down and I approve the activity. Yes, please reboot. Okay. And then from there, I just go apply, and OK. Now I go back to Orchestrator. We see now it's in the little stop state, so it's, I can click next step. Right, it's now approved. The next step's going through is it's going to put it into maintenance mode in Operations Manager, which has happened, and then it's going to initiate a reboot. So I jump over here, we see the server's now gone reboot. I jump back over to Operations Manager, go to my Windows computer view, and you'll see the lun-app2 server. Let's refresh that. App 2 has now gone into maintenance mode, and the server's going rebooting itself.
And there's a red alert to tell you that the server's down.
And that's the end of that step. Thank you.
Wow. There you go.
Yep, question?
Okay, so...
Sorry, Gordon, we had a question?
Oh, sorry. But that's a very good point. So the gentleman at the front has actually also pointed out that you could just fire the job directly from Operations Manager. So I think there was a talk this week Brian Wren did when he talked about firing jobs from the recovery part of an Operations Manager monitor. So, and one of the advantages of doing that is you beat down the limit you've got on running runbooks on a runbook server. So that's a really good point. Thank you for that as well. So, there are various ways that you can kick that off. Be your service incident ticket. It could be another management product that you've got in your environment as well that's doing that job as well via Orchestrator. And on that note, actually, about a couple of hints and tips that we've ran into in the field really around Orchestrator is always put in handle failure and warning links in your Orchestrator runbook. So what we tend to do is every single step of a runbook, and we simplified it in the demo today, but every single step of the runbook, we write logging data out to a file, or even a SQL database sometimes, so that we've got a central place to be able to do that. And another thing, sir? Okay. Yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. So we didn't do that. So the gentleman was saying, just for everybody here as well, that we could have obviously done that through Service Manager as well. We could have had a workflow running so the incident went up through the incident connector. We're just kind of trying to show something today, a kind of way. And there's many ways. The great thing about Orchestrator, there is many ways of kind of implementing it and doing it in your organization. And that's definitely the flexibility and power in it, that you can run it from a number of areas. So just a couple of, put in that handle failure in your runbooks, replace the default strings that are in there. It's caught us out a couple of times when we've been doing runbook designs. All of the runbooks, when you load them up from integration packs, have default strings in there, and change link colors. One of the other things that you can do with Orchestrated runbooks that we kind of showed, because we didn't show today, is you can have branches off to other runbooks. So we could have had one of those steps. That example that I gave you, where we do 3 checks on 3 different elements of a website, we actually had parallel branches coming off that carried out each of the checks and ran as individual runbooks. So that's a good way of kind of keeping the runbook very efficient, and it's a good way of organizing that. And you can change the link colors so you understand what's flowing where. Also, limit the number of activities for each runbook. So, as the gentleman in the front row pointed out, there is a limit on the amount of runbooks that you can run on a runbook server, and you probably will hit that pretty early on. So obviously limit activities, keep them very simple. We've seen some people that we've run into have done such complicated runbooks that actually they're not being efficient about the way that they run the operation as well. And also enable runbook logs to an external file, as I've already said. So just some things in there. But get working with that, guys. If you haven't used Orchestrator, get it in your organization and get running with it. It's very, very simple to be able to do some simple stuff. One other thing as well that I'll say on the hints and tips, don't try and bite off too much in the first instance with it. Yeah, so pick a number of easy to do scenarios, work on them, do them well, test them, and then expand out in your organization. Don't think you're going to solve all your business's automation queries in one attack. Yes.
I have just a real basic question. We're having some trouble with SCOM 2012 and Service Manager in that you can't apply the SCOM 2012 agent if Service Manager is there.
Yes, really good question. So I'll explain that. Yeah, so the lady's question was that she's having some difficulties with SCOM in getting it to manage Service Manager components. And actually, the only way that you can manage Service Manager components is agentlessly. And actually, it's really funny. When I give SCOM talks, I tell people never do agentless communication because it's a very big hit. It's an RPC connection to the server. The reason for that is to do with the code drops. So Service Manager is actually built on the same technology as Operations Manager, just not quite the same technology as 2012. So there is some incompatibility issues. And I'm sure that the team will work on that over time to get that right. But we haven't seen too much downsides in doing the agentless monitoring, to be honest.
You don't get the rich experience
No,
for
that's
that
correct.
server when you're in that.
Yeah, there is correct. You probably lose about 30% of the functionality that you'd get from a normal management pack. And it can be an issue when you have a shared database, for example, because you absolutely want to monitor that database. So another thing that you could do, and Orchestrate, you could use Orchestrator to monitor elements of that as well. So we actually use Orchestrator today to do things like NT4 monitoring, because there isn't an agent available, and we can connect in and do things on that box. So maybe that agentless monitoring you can do with some additional, if it's a critical database, add some additional runbook monitoring to that. But absolutely feel your pain on that as well, because you kind of just want it to work as well. Actually, with some of the components as well, there is a way of getting them around. So if you install the Operations Manager agent first, like the web console, for example, and then you install the self-service portal, it will actually work, but it won't work the other way around. Yeah, so it's just some things, and there's some good blog posts about it if you look at that as well. But definitely hear you on that one, yeah. Finally, we're going to jump into, or last but not least, we're going to look at problem management. So anybody doing problem management in Service Manager? Okay, anybody doing problem management in their organization? So Service Manager delivers problem management, as a function. And actually, for those who don't understand what problem manager is, an incident is a one-off occurrence of an event in the organization. So the kind of things that Sean was showing are incidents. They typically do not cause a loss or reduction, or they do cause a loss or reduction in service, and they usually resolve quite quickly. Now, a problem is more complex than an incident. So it might be something that your first-line support guy just can't deal with. So he'll escalate it as a problem to a problem team. It might be that it's just the most critical application in the organization, and you don't want it dealt by first line. You want to escalate it directly to a problem team. These typically can take much longer to resolve, and they can cause long-term reductions of your service. So problem management is in Service Manager. Now, one of the interesting things in Service Manager is another element where problem management comes in is where you have more than one incident. So you might have, for example, if a database backup fails, and it fails once, that's an incident. If a database backup fails 5 times over a week, that's a problem. Yeah, because that has to be dealt with, because there's an underlying thing that needs to be fixed there. So we're going to kind of look at that element and look how we can use automation to actually add some extra stuff to Service Manager. So, typically you create a problem record within Service Manager, which is similar to the kind of change record that Sean was showing earlier. There are a number of options for kind of pre-populating that. You would have related instance that relate to that problem ticket, and we're going to kind of look at that in the demo in a sec. And you typically have ways to resolve them. So a typical thing with a problem record is you have a problem log, and the information to fix that problem is stored in that log, so it can be used later on by other people. And there's 2 ways of kind of linking problems to an incident in Service Manager. That's by using incident management process or using a separate problem management process. So I'm going to ask my colleague to come up, and he's going to do a little demo for me around configuring an automated problem record incident. I think it's that one, actually. So what we're actually going to demo here is we're going to demo an alert coming into Operations Manager, and we're going to actually detect that alert that's occurring. So I haven't got another mic, so I'm going to have to speak for him, actually. So we've actually got an Operations Manager event rule here that's looking for a database going offline. Now, I know there are rules within Operations Manager, but this is just for demo purposes. So this is actually looking for an event that occurs in the application log. It's looking for a certain event ID and an application source. And once that picks up that particular alert, that's going to actually do something with it. It's going to actually create an alert in Operations Manager, which we're then going to look for. And you can see there's some information about that alert name, the criticality, and then we're going to be able to pick that up from the Operations Manager console. Now, this particular database is my stock trader database. So if it goes down, I really don't want those first-line guys dealing with it. I want my problem team coming out and actually applying some third-line engineers against that. So over here in Operations Manager, we have an incident request that's actually through the instant connector in Operations Manager. So we've got this alert automatically piping into Service Manager. And if you look in the All Instance section here, you can see that we've got a number of instances that have come in for that particular problem there. And these particular instances come into our instance queue in Service Manager. And basically, we can then create a problem record for these particular incidents. And you can see what Steve's doing here is he's linking together 3 of these incidents, and he's going to create a problem record for those particular incidents. And you can see down here on the right, we've got the ability to link that to a problem and create a fresh problem record. And Steve's just clicking in there, and he's actually it's going to load up a problem form now, and he's actually going to create a particular problem record in here. Now, this is a really nice way to start adding some process to your support operation as well. Problem management is a really good ITIL type discipline to get into if you're not already. And Service Manager is not a bad problem with which to start practicing that. So what Steve's done here is added in some objects related to that particular problem item. And we can see all of the affected items, the services, the servers that they're running on. We can see an action log if we need to put some information within that. We can also view the related items. So there's all the other incidents that he wrapped up originally. And we can see resolution and history around that as well. So next we're going to look at adding a bit of process within this particular process now. So what Steve's going to do is going to go into the SQL server now, and he's actually just going to kill that SQL database. Now, what we've actually got behind the covers here is we've got an orchestrator workflow that's actually automating some of those processes within there. So what you're looking at here is the orchestrator operations console. Now, we've got a runbook that we've put into orchestrator that's actually looking for an occurrence of that particular incident. And what Steve's got on the screen here is actually an orchestrator runbook that we've developed. And what we've actually got is we've got a monitor object which is actually monitoring for an occurrence of that incident in Service Manager. The first thing it's going to do is go in and delete a temp file. It's then going to get the information about the stock trader in there. I'll just jump in there. So that particular one is going to go and get the service details regarding stock trader. It's then going to get the objects that are related to that, the incidents, and then it's going to output that data to a temp file that we've got within there. It's then going to combine that data. It's going to get the business service details. It's going to basically count the lines in that, compare the volumes, and create an automatic problem based on that incident coming in. So one of the things that Steve demonstrated earlier is that the only way that you can, currently in Service Manager, create a problem ticket based on an incident is to manually create that record. Yeah, so you have to manually go in and look at incidents, or somebody has to push an incident up to be a problem. So what this particular workflow does is it's looking for that incident. When it finds that incident, it's going to automatically create a problem ticket, which then might have some escalation path associated with that. So it's a really good way, and you can see the final thing we got on there is linking the instance to the problem. So once that problem ticket's occurred, the instance is going to be linked back into then, and we've got a little bit of automation. I don't know whether you want to run that, Steve?
It's worth noting that actually within the workflow, what it's doing is it's looking for the number of incidents that have occurred against the service. So we can configure this up in the workflow so that if there's 10 or more incidents, for instance, of the same type over a set period, then it creates the problem record rather than just sometimes creating just an immediate problem record.
That's right, I think we'll jump off there. Okay, so we're running out a bit of time, so we're going to actually show you the step through with that workflow as well. But I'm actually going to jump back now because there's a couple of final things that I want to talk about with you. So just a couple of things around that particular thing. So Steve was doing some targeting rules at the beginning of that. So this stuff, a lot of operations managers and the guys, some of you are probably already practicing a lot of this. And it's around targeting objects and classes and use groups to override. So also be aware of inheritance each class and limit the number of activities for each runbook. So just some hints and tips around when you're doing that as well. Final thing I wanted to quickly run through was, and we're massively running out of time, was installing, configuring the System Center Cloud Services Process Pack. Has anybody actually downloaded this and installed it in their environment, the Cloud Services Process Pack? Okay, so we've got a couple of people at the back. You guys that haven't, I definitely recommend you bring it down and play with it. What it actually provides is a number of elements for Service Manager and for Orchestrator. There was an RC version out. I believe that there is going to be a release version soon. Definitely when that release version's up, get it down and use it in your System Center 2012. The Cloud Services Process Pack allows you to basically do service request fulfillment against your private cloud infrastructure. So there's been a lot of talk about private cloud this week and creating capacity pools and being able to kind of offer self-service to the users. So another big element of private cloud as well is cost center-based billing. So it's difficult really to see whether you can do cost center billing today in System Center. So actually the Cloud Services Process Pack brings around the concept of a cost center, and then you can actually put costs against virtual machines, and then as people order up infrastructure through the self-service portal, that you can actually see them, you can actually see the costs that they're incurring and provide chargeback billing. Now, Sean actually showed yesterday in the analytics session how you can take some of that data as well, and you can provide analytical reporting around costs as well. So there's various elements. I'll let you guys kind of read that when you download that. So as I mentioned, the Cloud Services Process Pack provides cloud services runbooks. So these are runbooks that reference service requests offerings within the Service Manager console. And it is basically very, very simple to get up and running. And here's the process flow for that. You actually install the Cloud Services Process Pack. You install the Orchestrator runbooks. You do a little bit of integration in System Center to get that running. And what it actually comes with is pre-populated request offerings that allow you to commission and decommission a virtual machine. So the user would go into the self-service portal, and I've got a very, very quick demo of that I'm going to show you just finally, and show you what it kind of looks like when it's installed. And actually it's on my operations box. Okay, so when you've actually installed this, you actually get an additional, you get the ability to create a service catalog for your private cloud items. And actually what you can do with this catalog is you can provide service request fulfillment to your users using Service Manager and Orchestrator. Now, I mentioned VM commissioning and VM decommissioning. You could also give somebody the ability of adding more memory to a virtual machine or giving somebody the ability to add extra disk. Some of the things that we've done recently for customers is automating Data Protection Manager as well. So you could give the user the ability to get their own VM delivered, but also give them the ability to back up that virtual machine or back up things like SQL databases that are running on there. So, in fact, let me just see whether that's actually running there. Yeah, it is. There we go. So you can see what I've actually done here is I've created a service offering for my end users that actually contains a number of different request offerings. So I can actually, with this, request a project. So a project in the Cloud Service Process Pack contains a number of capacity pools. So a capacity pool from a cost information could be a certain VM, a 4 gig VM with a certain amount of storage, and you could have different capacity pools with different costs within there. And you basically go in and you can request items from here, but it really does bring that ability to do service request offerings and service request fulfillment quite a bit earlier. And you know, for those who haven't kind of tried out this ability to do this within the self-service portal, I definitely recommend you kind of try to use runbooks in this way with Service Manager. So I just kind of wanted to run through that finally because I think it's quite an exciting way of using Service Manager and Orchestrator together. And again, with this, when you're starting with this and you're creating things like service request fulfillment, and you actually don't need the cloud services process pack to do service request fulfillment, you have virtual machine manager connections and VMware, and you can very easily just connect into your platform and offer service request fulfillment to your users. So just a little summary at the end here. Private cloud to me isn't kind of changing massively the way you work. Private cloud to me is a set of methodologies. So self-service, automation, and all of these lead to one thing. You know, it's quite funny. A few years back, Microsoft used to have this thing called Dynamic Data Center. And I actually think that the tools we've got today just allow us to kind of get to the end of that core I/O model that Microsoft had and allow us to have that dynamic data center. So use the tools in that way. Don't just take them back or deploy them and use them individually. Create service catalogs for request offerings. Automate everything. Well, not everything, but automate everything, but add process into that automation with Service Manager. Sign up for the private cloud mock courses. I know that we wrote them, but I have to say they're pretty awesome. So get in touch with your training providers, sign up for those courses, get some more knowledge, you know, based on some of the things we showed you today. And guys, get yourself down the end of the corridor and get certified today. It's a free beta exam. You never know, you might just pass it with the knowledge that you've learnt this week. So just finally, anybody going to the MMS party tonight? I've been asked to let you know, it's obviously tonight at the Chateau Paris Hotel. Please remember to bring your lighted party necklace and a photo ID, otherwise you will not be getting in. Yeah, so just make sure you do that, and that's the only way that you'll get admitted tonight to the party. And finally as well, a couple of announcements. The Microsoft courses that we've talked about today are available today. So they got released this week along with the beta exams, and that's the 10.750 and the 10.751, and they're beta mock courses, but they are actually very good. They do stand up on their own, both courses, so I definitely recommend you go and see them. And I've asked by a friend of mine to plug his book, Microsoft Private Cloud Computing. That's available on Amazon. It's the only Microsoft private cloud book, and it's actually written by MVPs. A couple of them in the room, I think I saw at the back there. So definitely download that book. It's available now, I think, guys, is it? June. It's available in June. So I know the guys that wrote that, and they are top dollar MVPs in System Center. So I know that's definitely going to be worth buying that. Please complete your session evaluations, and please be kind, because we'd like to come back and talk to you again. And thank you all very much for attending our session. I hope you got something out of it.